should be good. Alright, let me make sure we are live. And I'll post the link. We are live. Beautiful. I'm just going to post the link on the group, and then we will dive right into this fun little scene. Alrighty. More tangible editing. Alrighty. Post this. It's coming, I promise. Oh gosh. Okay. Cool. Once that posts, we'll get. Oh, I need to pause this because it's going to take up all sorts of bandwidth. Alright. We are streaming. We're going to look today at this scene from Disconnected. It's 0202, so it's super early on in the series. Second episode, second scene. Just between Courtney and Tyler, Del and Jack, those characters, and all that, so that's good stuff. So pretty simple scene. There's basically three angles we use kind of throughout it. There's this wide shot, close shot of Courtney, and close shot of Tyler. So those are our three shots we're using. And you can see that we're actually using somewhere through here, and you can tell by my naming that we use, the naming is based on the take we used. So A2 and A1, those are from the angle A. B2 is all from the same take from angle B. So that's, you know, essentially, oh my gosh, I guess it's 0202. I named my stream incorrectly, that's on me. So, yeah, so this, we can see the B angle and the angle, and there's two different takes being combined for this A angle. We have this one shot that we kind of grab from the wide instead of the close, and then we have, the main thing we can see here that I'm going to need to work on with color correction is that, you can see there's a pretty clear difference between like these two, and even if I grab like a wide, compare the wide shots, you can see there's a pretty drastic difference in what the shot looks like. We go from something kind of cold to something kind of, well, this is actually fairly neutral, to something that's a fairly warm shot. So I'm actually gonna want a second playhead here, just so we can kind of see what I did. And the keyboard shortcut for that is Alt 2 is to get the second one up there. But this right now, what I have is I have this split screen thing on. I can turn it off. That's F9 to bump back and forth between those two. But you can see the clear difference. It's funny because when it's the exact same shot, it actually does look like it could be just a straight up line down the middle between these two, because the camera's in the same place. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, I can shift, you know, across, you know, how I want the shots. But basically, I can use this to reference and try and get the two to match pretty closely. And that's what I'm going to do first, because these are the two ones that are super obvious. I will eventually go back and fix all the close angles, too, to kind of match. But just looking at speed grade, if you haven't used speed grade before, what I have is, my video output is low. Why are we freaking out here? I don't know why we're freaking out here. It seems to be going better now. It seems to be doing better. I don't know. It says we had some drop frames, but it looks like we might be okay. We had a moment where we were freaking out, but I think we're okay. Alright. Sorry. Anyway, so, yeah, so the speed grade layout is kind of weird. I'll admit that right off the bat. This is obviously our preview, and this is, I've already opened the scene and everything. There's other, you can click over these other tabs. I can't right now because I've already got stuff open, but, you know, you can go to your render tab and stuff, and I don't want to open right now. It basically just says you need to go back to Premiere, and I'm like, no, because this is a Premiere project. I opened it with direct link and all that good stuff. That's Adobe's things all working together real nice. I like to keep this as big as I can because I want to be able to see all the color and stuff that's happening. These are my two graphs I usually keep out here. Sometimes I keep some things. It's usually these, I guess. Parade is their waveform. So it's typically the waveform and the parade of the three I keep. It doesn't really do much there. I'm going to disable chroma. And, yeah, I just want to keep it like that. So, what these two main things do, and I've gone over these before at some point, but real quick, this is basically the brightness throughout the scene, and it's based on the number 1 playhead, not the number 2 playhead. So it's really looking at, in this case, this one. I need to switch which way these are, because it's going to bug the crap out of me. There we go. So with F11, I switched basically which was on which side, because 1 comes first and then 2, so it makes more sense for me to do this. So if we look at this one, we can see we have some bright spots here, which is actually like right over here, in this area. It lines up left to right, basically. We have our darks area kind of in the middle, which is this, you know, area right around here, and that makes sense. Our RGB, we can tell the reds are way higher up, which means there's more of them than like the blues. That's because the shot is so red. If I switch over to the second playhead, where that is, you can see it's kind of the opposite. It's almost a much cooler shot, as in temperature-wise, not as in like that's an awesome shot. So, you know, keep that in, that in mind. But yeah, so we've got the main thing, like I said, we're gonna have to do is gonna have to warm one shot up and cool down the other, and I think we're gonna do a lot more cooling down than warming up if we can help it. So I'm going to leave these two on like this, and yeah, you can if you click and hold in this little display, you can see kind of your RGB values and all that cool stuff. You can kind of see what you're working with at different points. I can click, like this plant would be a good one to use because it should be roughly the same, or the table would actually be a really good one if I wanted to actually look at those. But I usually do it by eye. I just kind of eyeball it. So looking at our stuff down here, I really don't usually mess with shadows, midtones, and highlights. I usually stick in overall as much as I can. And right now, one thing I'm going to notice, temperature is obviously something I can change, and if I just change temperature like this, you can already see us getting a lot closer. I'm just clicking and dragging on that to make it a lot, and you can already tell it's a lot closer. And I can, just like we can in Premiere with turning on and off effects, I can turn on and off, these lumetri layers, which are the color correcting layers, and you can see without and then with, and you see how much that changes. We'll check to make sure Tyler looks good in this too. But yeah, it's, pretty easy to see that we've just that one simple thing has already made a ton of difference. So this is a really good one. This is seen as a really good scene to look at for color correcting stuff because, like I said, we have that one. We have essentially that one. What did I say? The one scene or one half of the scene is kind of very warm, and the other half of the scene is pretty good. Maybe a little bit, arguably a little bit too cold, a little bit dark, maybe. Because, yeah, I actually do like this half now better than this half. When we started off, overall, I liked this half better. But I can tell it's much better lit over here than it is over here. So, to make it, because this is almost, honestly, really kind of perfect at this point. And you'll see that me shifting this side to side is not affecting this at all. Once again, this is just for the left half. It's just showing you this, the number 1 playhead, which is this thing right here, versus the number 2, which is over here. Just strictly for, just strictly for comparison and all that purposes. So what I want to do, this shot, I want to look, because I've got it pretty close. Temperature-wise, they're pretty much the same right now. There's for sure higher contrast on this side, so I might do is click over to this. And now me clicking over to this is going to change this bottom panel, but not the other ones, because these, once again, are based strictly off the number 1 playhead. If I click on any of these, it's not going to... These aren't going to update, but these will change. Like, I can make this real warm, because I'm clicked on it, but it won't affect anything over there. Well, let me look at, so we can see over here we've actually made it arguably too cold, with these. Ideally, your blue and red should be about even. I don't mind it being a little bit, well, let me see what time of the day it's supposed to be in this scene. That's the other thing to consider is, if you're doing like a night scene, it should be probably cooler. An afternoon scene should be warmer. Morning scene, you can have cooler too. I want to see what this is written as. And it's just written as day, so I kind of have... It's one of the earlier scenes in the episode. It starts... Yeah, we start inside in the morning. We're out here. What's the next thing? Then we go to afternoon. So this is kind of midday. So I actually could deal with it being a little bit warmer, because it's supposed to be midday. I don't want it to look like evening. So I will make it just a little bit warmer. Maybe right about there. It's a pretty solid compromise between where we were originally. We've obviously cooled it off. A little bit, but it still has that kind of a warm feel to it, which is nice. Alrighty, so yeah, we're just going to take a look at, well, while we're here, we'll go ahead and try and warm this shot up a little bit to see if we can make it look, temperature-wise, pretty close. I think that's pretty close. We gotta warm it up a pretty good bit, and it's going to change with all the lighting and stuff we do to it. But there's your before, and then your after. Arguably a little bit too, they might both be a little bit too warm. I'm going to go back to the first one and just cool it off a little bit. Maybe about 15 is where I'm kind of shooting. There we go. That's good. It's still warm. It still looks like it's, hot outside and all that. The problem is this was filmed in the afternoon. almost to the evening, so there's a lot of compensating that has to be done there. Alright, so let me take... I really like the lighting on this. I'm going to try and get the lighting to match. And I do want to see what that looks like, so I'm actually going to switch these two. Oh gosh, I totally lost my second playhead. Come back, playhead. Where was this thing? Right there. This arm one? Yep, there it is. So, yeah, this is fine. So all I've done is switch the playhead, so now this is showing up for this. And you can see already, if I just pop back over right here, how much brighter this shot is than this shot. You see everything just kind of shifted down. So what I'm going to kind of do, it's not pivot that really affects that. It's this is a little reset button right here. Each of those are reset buttons. I'm not going to mess with that one because, you know, I have it lined up pretty well. But I want to, let's say I want to bump up, these are basically shadows, midtones, and highlights, these three. So if I wanted to bump up like just the dark parts, I could do this, and that's already helping a ton. I could do the midtones a little bit, and the highlights just, I'm going to just touch everything up a little bit. And we're noticing it looks a little bit more washed out maybe than this, or a little bit flatter. So we're going to up the contrast to kind of fix that and make it look a little bit better. And there we go. That's looking a lot better already. And it actually looks a little bit too warm. I told you shading the light's going to affect the temperature a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. Just enough. Alright, that looks pretty good, honestly. Obviously, there's still a pretty clear line between these two. But, yeah, we can see... Yeah, let me do one of these. Let me look at Tyler like this. That's another thing I do like about this split screen thing, is that I can shift it, and I can look, and I say, okay, Tyler clearly needs more brightness or something. It's just way too dark. And one way to fix it might honestly be just bumping up the saturation. So I'm going to bump up the input saturation. And that's going to help a little bit. I'll bump it up even more over here. Let me look at Courtney on both sides and see how she's doing. She's pretty good. There's not a ton of difference happening here that I can tell. I think it's still brighter in the left shot. For sure. Let me bump up the final saturation a little bit. Keep bumping that up. I don't want it to look too wacky, and it doesn't right now. I'm going to bump up. Just looking at that one, I'm going to, you know. Jesus, we're looking a lot better than we were, for sure. We're so close. Because this is without, and then with. So you can see we've made just leaps and bounds closer to where we were. Magenta is not really an issue for me here, I don't think. Yeah, no, to double check, I just kind of take it, play with it a little bit and see what happens, and we're not really seeing any big difference or anything there. Our pivot's not a huge, not really doing too much. I might move it up a little bit. But I don't want to sacrifice the shot in general just for, yeah, so let's look at it. Yeah, obviously that needs to have a lot of work done. But looking back over here compared to like the before and after, it's obviously making a huge difference. We've got a lot going for us. I think we just need a little bit more contrast maybe. It just still looks a little flat. Well, that's a lot closer. Where's my split screen? There it is. That's a ton closer. Obviously, you know, it's never going to be quite perfect. But if I was to cut basically between these two, it would be pretty close. I think our highlights are actually a little too high. I'm seeing stuff in the back. What you can do is you can gray out. This is how I kind of check see what my highlights are. So the stuff that's white right now, or gray, or whatever you want to call it, is highlighted. Like color, no, color black. No, wait, what would I do? White black is what I did. So obviously most of our stuff is midtones. Yeah, there's a couple things on there. So what I might do, because these are probably technically midtones. What are highlights? White, black. Yeah, they're kind of highlights. It's like these things in the back I'm noticing are too high, so I might bump down the shadows of the midtones, or the shadows of the highlight, the lower part of the highlight. This is when I occasionally will go and fine tune, and I'll bump this down a little bit too, and that's gonna help take the edge off of some of those. That definitely took the edge off of some of that stuff right there, which helped us a lot. Let me see if I can get Tyler's face in a better position. No, I can't. He's facing that way the whole time. That's fine. I just gonna see his face looks just clearly different, but it's because he's facing the light versus off to the side, and I don't think we have the same exact lighting setup. But this is pretty close. Like obviously there's differences here, and you could play with this probably all day if you really wanted to. Oops, I don't want to mess with the contrast of just that. the overall and just see. I'm just going to just crank the contrast way up and see what happens. So see, we don't want to go that far, obviously. We don't want to go too low either. I kind of like... And this is one where I'll honestly go left to right with the mouse, click and drag this little contrast button. But I won't look at the number. So I could go down like way to the negatives here and be like, oh, if that looks better, I'll keep that. But I'm just kind of waiting to see when I think it lines up pretty well. It lines up pretty well right about there, which is about where I had it before. I can maybe even go a little bit farther with it. I don't want to go too far. And I was looking at the green plants for that, because they had a pretty clear difference between the two. But now those plants are fairly similar. And like I said, it's obviously we're not identical here. But when you're doing a cut from this to like a close angle and then back, when you do like a cut from like this to the close angle and then back to this, you probably won't notice. A majority of people will not notice. It won't be a big enough deal. I think the temperature might be slightly off on these two. So I could warm this way up, but that's gone way too far. So once again, I'm going to just drag this to the left and I'm going to focus kind of on the building here. Let me find a good place to focus on. Like right there. I'm going to be focusing on this line on the building and see how close I can get. Oh gosh, we have zeroed it out. Definitely needs to be warmer. So right there is about good temperature-wise. It's not perfect, obviously. Maybe I can make it a little... There are parts I think it just needs a little bit darker. A couple areas. Yeah, darken that. Okay, that's pretty close. You know, ideally you'd get... So if you could split screen this, you wouldn't be able to tell that they were two different shots. You know, if I was to do this, you wouldn't be able to tell. But there are obviously differences. And like I said, when the sun shifts like that, there's always going to be differences. But I'm pretty happy with this. I can see Courtney's skin is different in the two. So I might just go ahead and lighten her up a little bit more. Oh boy. And then just to counteract that, I'm going to add a little bit more contrast. There we go. So not perfect, obviously. They both look a little bit paler in this shot than this shot. But that's okay. We're going to play with it and see how it looks in the close angles. And kind of see what we're dealing with here. Alright, so let me save this. I'm going to save both of them. And to save a little preset, I want to do this, which is save your .look. And then if you open this whole thing, it pops up right down there. So there it is. And I'm just, yeah, 0202, that's fine. Fine name. It usually names it just based off the sequence. Alright, where was the close? Is this the one we were messing with? Yeah, this is the one we didn't do a ton to this side. And that's fine. I typically won't do a ton to specific sides. And then let me save this. Okay. Saved it. Now what I want to do is kind of apply these two things. I'm going to see if I can. Oh, I made it. I just want to make it this size. Scroll down. Okay. I just want to kind of apply these two. Oh, God, that looks awful. To the different wide angles. So I can start here at this one, and I want to apply. It'll be pretty clear which one I want to apply. Not that one. This one. So I double-click it. Apply it. Double-click it. There is, you could, in theory, do this to the source video instead of after it's done with all these cuts and everything. But I already have the cuts. I typically color grade afterwards. It's not that hard. But you have the save presets. We can now switch to the other one. So we'll see, like, that's obviously making it colder. That's making it a lot warmer. And then save it there. Okay. So, say it was real quick. So now we've got all the wide shots are done, and now I want to make sure that when I cut from a wide shot to a close shot that we're close. And these aren't far off. The ones in between, like I said, if we draw that line right here between the A and the B's, the ones on the B's will work pretty well with each other, the ones with the A's will work pretty well with each other. But different cameras, so things are going to look a little different. I'm going to hit 2 up there. And what I'm going to do is just do right like this is where I'm going to move my line. And it is really close. It really is. Shift this. I'm just going to shift our number. Oh, God, not that one. Come here. I'm just going to shift this a little bit. I'm never going to get her face facing the right way, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so we're going to look at something like this. Yeah, because our best reference point is going to be Courtney at this point. And I can tell there is a little bit of a difference here. So I'm going to, instead of color grading this, because remember, we've already made the wide shots look like each other. We've already made the 2 wide shots look right. So what I'm going to have to do is now match the close shots to the wide shots. And if I have to mess with a wide, I have to mess with both wides and yada, 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 and that's fine. which I could do, but I'm not going to because it would be a pain. I'm going to try. Well, I'm going to try not to, I should say. I'm going to try not to. Okay, we're going to, let's see what we have to do here. It's a very bright shot. I think that's part of the problem, is there's not a lot of darkness happening in these shots. So I'm going to bump down those. I'm going to bump up the mid-tones. Take the edge off the highlights a little bit. I just want to look at just this one real quick. Because what color correcting, what we should be doing really is just making this look fairly neutral. Color grading, we can come in, and color grading is giving it some sort of stylistic look. We're not really going for that yet. We're really just trying to, yeah, it needs to be way cooler is what's going to help this. It just needs to, everything needs to be believable that it could be filmed at the same time at the same place. Which it was, but like I said, clouds change, you're filming outside, I get it. Okay, that's honestly not bad. I think almost, we might have just gone way overboard on the contrast. No, maybe not. Just trying to get her to match there. Okay, there we go. That's pretty solid. I might bump down the saturation a little bit. No, let me bump it up. See what that looks like. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that's pretty solid. What happens if you go from one to the other? Let me look at... Sometimes I will do this where I'll break them out side by side. And then I want to switch them. Yeah, it's almost too contrasty. Because they are filmed, the differences here you get a lot is that they're filmed on different lenses and sometimes different camera bodies. These, I believe, were filmed. No, this was different camera bodies too. One of these, I think this one's a 70D and this one's a T3i. So we're going to see some differences a little bit in kind of our what's the word? There's a word for it. Not depth of field. You know what I'm saying. There's a couple differences in, the dynamic range. That's what I'm looking for. In our dynamic range, and that our black might be blacker on one than the other. There might be a bigger or a wider dynamic range on this shot because it's the 70D versus this shot. So we kind of look for that and try to do what we can. There's not a ton we can do about that, honestly. I almost think, yeah, it's really not that warm of a shot. That, I think, is pretty solid. There we go. Yeah, that's not bad. That's pretty solid. We can see the red of the bricks is close enough to matching. Like I said, it's never really going to be perfect. That's okay. You just kind of have to accept that. But it should be close enough. Yeah, we can do top to bottom, too, if we want to. We can rotate it like that. That's also with F10, which is the same thing I use to... Once it's out here, F10 will go like that, too. So, if I look at it, yeah, it's pretty close. We can look at her hair and see that's always a good indicator. Yeah, we can actually see Tyler in this shot too, but he's not going to be a ton of help over there. But that's fine. Okay, I'm happy with that. So if we save this now, this is going to be Courtney's close shot. And we're going to just basically bounce through and see... Oh, did this not get... No, it did get hit. Yeah, it doesn't look the same for some reason. Is that just me, or does that not look at all? I guess it's still pretty close. We'll come back and play with individual ones like that if they look weird in a minute. Yeah, you can see that's making a big difference for sure. That's what it's doing. It's doing a ton of stuff. Okay. This one might look different because it was a completely different take. So that one we do have to take with a little bit of a grain of salt. Alright, so we've applied all the Courtney ones. Because this one... Yeah, it's going to bug me until I fix it. This one's different. Like I said, the reason it's different is because it was A1. It was the first take. The other ones are A2. It's the second take of that angle. So I'm just going to play and see what I can do as far as getting these to match. We're kind of back to this similar thing. It's actually a little bit too cold. I really want to just warm it up slightly. Not too much, but just enough. I'm going to, once again, kind of using Tyler's shirt as a reference. The problem with this is different references are going to give you different things. Like, if I get the shirt matched perfectly, Courtney's going to be way off or something. Like, yeah, you can see we've made things way too warm by just matching up with his shirt. So we're going to back off the warmth a little bit. We're going to use the background. I use the background as much as I can. Obviously, certain features like the shirt and faces and stuff are important, too. But for general things like background, and I can actually see one's more in focus than the other. Somehow in this A1 shot, the background's in focus instead of the actors, but that's okay. I can't do anything about that in color correcting. Let's see how Courtney looks. Okay, that's pretty good. We could almost just make it a little bit brighter. Actually, let's just lose some contrast on it, and then make it a little bit brighter. Too bright. I don't know. Courtney looked way off for some reason. Yes. I just want to make it, oh god, way too bright. What if I do that? Okay, she's pretty close now. The background's way off. Like I said, it's you gotta kind of pick what you want. And for this, I might try to make the actors just look closer. That's what you're gonna see. You know, for the temperature of the background's fine. The brightness isn't gonna line up quite right, but the actors are pretty good, and that's all you can really ask for. That's what people are gonna be looking at. This shot is for sure a wider shot, or a lighter shot, a brighter shot. So I'm gonna bump it down just a little bit. That's just the darks. I'm bumping down a little bit. And we'll see how we feel about that. That's much better. None of them are going to be perfect. You know, we've gotten a lot closer. If you look at what it was before and after. Yeah, oops. It's definitely a lot closer than it was. You know, we've added a little bit more brightness to it. A little bit of temperature, that sort of a thing. It's not perfect, but it should be close enough. And we can verify whether or not it's close enough. We can just watch the first little bit here. No sound, I know. We bounce out to that. It is a little bit different, but if it's one of those things where if you're not really looking for it, you're not going to notice it. Let me bounce back to that one. Oh goodness, different shot. So we can see that obviously is way off. Yeah, I'm still not a huge fan of this, actually. I'm going to play with it a little bit longer. Let's see what we can do. Because I do want to fix it. It's going to bug me. Let me look at them side by side. I'm trying to figure out, I think it's too warm, first of all. That's my first impression. I think it is too warm. So I was looking at them side by side, like in help versus the cross section like we were doing. That's helping a ton already, and then I might just change the contrast. I don't know if it's too high. It might be too high. That's definitely too high. Bounce down. Maybe right about there. That looks better to me than the other one did. Get rid of that. Stop. Let me just get rid of this real quick, and we're just gonna watch through again. Just gonna see what it looks like. There's our first one. Close angle looks fine, and we're going to cut back to the different one, and that looks a lot better. I wasn't thrown off by that one like I was the first time. It was a lot better. Cut back out to the original one, and I didn't notice. So I think we're fine on that one. Oh, excuse me. There will be a noticeable difference now when we cut to the Tyler angle. His is going to look way off. Yep. So what I might do, another trick I've used sometimes, is I'll actually throw... like, I'd throw this on, which was our wide angle one, because it's going to get me close. It ain't perfect. Oh, God, it definitely is not perfect. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's going to help. And in this case, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to match, not to that one. I really want to match this one closer to this. Even though it's coming from that one, we'll have to go and balance with this one the whole time. So, I want to, oh, there's so much wrong. I almost might just start from scratch, but I'm not going to. There's a lot of weird things happening here. Reset our pivot. A lot of the brightness and contrast ones I'm going to just kind of reset because it's a different camera. The saturation looks awful too. The saturation was, something was going on there. Alright. Was this the original shot? Oh no, I have these things all bumped up. Okay, I'm like, something is way off here. I'm going to end up resetting most of this because it was just way off. Oh, our highlight, this is what it was. There's this hidden, I was like, something weird's going on. Forgot we messed with some of these. There we go. I believe that's the... Besides the temperature change. Yeah. That's the... I really wanted the temperature to change. And I could even have it maybe be a little bit warmer to match. I'm starting to not be a huge fan of this wide shot the more I look at it. I don't know if that's just because I'm looking at it a lot. I don't really know. I want... This shot needs to be a little bit brighter for sure, kind of throughout. And whenever I add brightness, I typically go back and add contrast to kind of counter that to make sure things are kind of staying roughly the same. It does need some saturation, especially in his shirt. If I was feeling really wild, I can go and just pick out his shirt individually with a secondary layer. I'm not going to do that right now. I might. Well, we might come back to it. I'll see how I'm feeling. Or warm that shot up a little bit. Alright. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. And I honestly think this matches up better with this wide angle. Oh god, what am I doing? What am I doing? Where am I going? This number one, totally lost track of which playhead was which. Lines up better with the close, or this. Those two line up decently well. I think it lines up pretty well with that, but it's still a little warm. Yeah, it's too warm. But especially on his face. I'm not a fan of that. The background is not quite right. Let's see, we go from here to here. This shot's almost too dark. I'm starting to notice. Let me see, what does our histogram over here look like? It's not bad. Okay, it does, I think I'm just at a dark spot in it for some reason. Light shifted or something, maybe. That's not bad. So, let's see what this looks like if we just watch, like, from here. See if it's a believable cut. Ugh, it still looks way off for some reason. I'm trying to figure out why. There's something weird happening to it. I don't know if it's too saturated. It's almost too much. It might be a magenta thing. I might need to add... That actually seems to be helping. Let me undo it and see what it looked like beforehand. Yeah, that definitely helped to add a little bit of pink back in there. It was almost too greenish. This green-pink is... The magenta is essentially the same thing for color between like your reds and your blues, but instead it's like your greens and your pinks kind of, or your magentas or whatever. And sometimes that can throw a shot off, and I think that's what was doing it for me there. Like, I think even here, her magenta, we could use a little bit more pink. And there, for some reason, I'm starting to think this is way too dark of a shot. I don't know what it is, but it's missing, it's not even for some reason. Shift our pivot across this way. I think that just looks better as a shot. Need to make sure it lines up. Oh god, the contrast is way too high. Yeah, let me try... This is the struggle of color correcting. It's a lot of going back and forth, trying to convince yourself that one way is better than another. Yeah, let's warm her up a little bit. And I want to go... Let me look at this again. See, that's not bad. That's a pretty close match, honestly, and I like that one better than the original one. So we're going to actually save that and go back and throw that back on to some of these. And when you throw it on it, I believe it just overwrites. Yeah, it just completely overwrites whatever you had before, which is helpful in this situation. And as you can see, it's not a huge difference. That the new changes, but it's enough that I think it's definitely worth it. Go away. Oh, go away, secondary playhead. Alright. So let's just watch the first part of this scene again. The first half and kind of see what we think. Anytime you have two things that are this far apart, it is going to be kind of a... Yeah, I think that's just about perfect now. That cut. This isn't bad. That's a lot better. That one's not perfect, but it's pretty good. That one is really solid. From the close back out to the wide. That's a really... Yeah, that's really good. This is still awful. I hate this. I can't stand this shot. It's way too cold. I think it's part of my problem. I'm going to try and match it to this. Because sometimes it can be really hard to match close shots to wide shots like this. Because, especially if you're using different lenses, different cameras, all that stuff. One big thing is the background just looks so different because it's blurred here and not here, you know. It's you know, much different depth of field. This could be a lot easier to match. I'm trying to find a better... Okay, that's pretty good. If I can match these two, we'll be kind of in business. What I'm going to do, because I'm just sick and tired of this shot, I'm just gonna dump it. I'm just going to start us from scratch. And try and see if matching it to this does any better. It's a slightly green shot. I'm noticing. I might try and move things a little bit that way. It definitely needs to be warmer. Yeah, the brightness is honestly not bad on the original one. If anything, I'm going to bump up a little bit. Just the mids, maybe. And that's pretty solid. And then I just might add a tiny bit of contrast. And that's already looking like a much better shot. I don't know. The other one just seems super yucky to me for some reason. And that happens sometimes, and that's fine. Yeah, see, it needs to maybe just be right about, because I don't want to, like, this is obviously way too far, but I need it to kind of be in the realm of believable, and right there is not bad. It's still a little greenish, but I can kind of live with it. And here to here is not a bad cut, I don't think. It's not awful. It could for sure be better. Let me bump up the saturation. Let me bump up the input saturation, see what that kind of does for us. I mean, it gets so bright. I don't want it, like, super saturated. But, like, right about there is not too bad. Once again, I'm clicking up on my playheads not, so these don't actually affect. These are for this, not for this. Okay, that's not bad. That's not atrocious. It's not. Oh god, I reset it. Okay, that's a lot better. I don't know what I didn't like about it. I could not stand it for a minute there. Let me go and apply that to the other close shots of Tyler. And it will, by the way, when you save, it'll save whatever, the thumbnail will be whatever you're over currently. Like I'm over this frame, so that's our thumbnail for that. Tyler on there, Tyler on there. These have been color corrected, yeah. Okay, so let's just watch the whole scene now and kind of see. I can. We're going to watch this from here. Just going to see what we think. It's going to bump down the resolution, but that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. That's not bad. So that cut there is a little hard, but unfortunately there's not a lot I can do because that cut right there is so perfect. I'd have to change the wide shot. I think I've got the wide shot as close as I can get it. Yeah, you typically want the cuts next to each other to line up really well. See, he has this long one right here. Yeah. I don't mind this anymore. I didn't like it at first. In color grading, we might be able to fix it more and maybe stylize it slightly to be a little bit cooler. And then it restarts. So yeah, I have no problem. This is pretty good on this scene. I have no real problems, no real qualms with it. So, what does this do? Oh yeah, I can turn the grading on and off from here too if I wanted to see it straight before and after. The whole thing I think is a little bit almost worn, and I could potentially turn that all down after the fact. You know, on the whole thing, we're just having to go one by one. And the way I could do that is just through the whole thing. I could actually do it probably in Premiere is the easiest way to do it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna open it back up in Premiere, and we're gonna see what that looks. I had Premiere closed. I typically do when I'm editing with color correction, just because color correction can hog so much power from your computer that it can be kind of a pain to do that way. Alright, I'm gonna go back over here. We gotta find our little, I had some things that came, some things came disorganized. That's so embarrassing. Let me throw them in episode 5 real quick. I have a sequence has been, I don't, I'm just gonna throw them in there. I'll fix these in a minute. / much later. Alright, this was 0202, that was what we're looking at right now. 0202, there we go. We open this, and if we look at this now, we'll notice that it has been color corrected. It's got, it now has this Lumetri color effect, which if I turn off will show the original and the new one. And yeah, like I said, the whole thing is very warm, which I'm not a huge fan of. So, but we can go into effects, video effects here, and do a color correction effect here. And there's a lot of different things we could do. Probably a tint is what I'd look at. There's a couple different things I could play with. But if I look at, like this one, if I want to cool this back off again, oh god, that was an awful, whatever the preset it is, awful. I don't want to do a tint. Oh, that's not what I want to do. There's a couple different, I could do a 3-way color corrector is typically what I use. I don't know if it has a really good way to change the temperature. Yeah, it's got a lot of stuff. You can kind of do it this way. Saturation, we can change a little bit. It might be a little oversaturated too, honestly. I think that's one of the problems. It's very, very saturated. So let's try fixing that first versus all of this. And we actually can change a lot of the stuff we changed with this Lumetri color effect. Can we actually change this? We can. Look at that. Oh my god, that's awful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, I'm going to look. I could just do another Lumetri color effect, and that's what I'm going to do actually. It's a little more than I need for sure. But we're going to go in here. We're going to go to our, there's a saturation in here somewhere. There it is, saturation. It's at 100 right now. Let's bump it down to like 80 and see that. Oh, wow. I think that's a lot better though. Bumping our saturation down has helped us a ton. I'm just going to call this low. I'm renaming it just for ease of use later if I'm looking at this. If I bump this saturation down, that helps that too. It especially helps these scenes. I think it was gross because there were just weird colors popping all over the place. So bumping down the saturation helps a lot with that. Yeah, let's just throw it on everything for here. Let's throw it over here too. Yeah, let's throw it on all of these, and I can just select them all and do that. Oops. Okay, alright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, I'm going to mute all of my layers, / solo this one, that's nothing. Just so we're not, we're not going to listen to audio, we're just going to watch and see how it looks. And I think this looks a lot better, just lowering the saturation there. That's a lot of what the problem with color correcting is, in my mind, is just being able to figure out what's wrong. And in our case, I think it was definitely a saturation problem, because this is looking a lot better. Typically, things in most TV and film today is not like overly saturated. If anything, it's undersaturated, and like especially like drama and stuff like that. Like this is, where we want this kind of very serious interaction between the two characters. You know, yeah, we want the serious thing, so we don't want it to be like popping with colors. Like, you know, we don't want a shirt to pop really out, or that water bottle, or the grass to like be the focal point of the attention. It should be the two characters. If we bump down the saturation, we're gonna get more of like this kind of a look, which is a much better look. It's actually a very second time kind of look. You know, versus something like YOLO Lifestyle we did, where it was a lot of bright colors all over the place. This is kind of, we're going back to the drama versus the outrageous comedy, so we're kind of, you know, bumping things down. More muted tones, typically. You know, he has this nice shirt, but we want to keep it under control versus keep it super bright. So yeah, that's pretty much, I'm pretty happy with that, honestly. I'm still not 100% happy with this shot for some reason, and these, but overall it's pretty solid. It's way better than it was. And actually what I'm gonna do, this will be fun, I'm gonna do a quick disconnected post-production. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull in the old, because I have the uncolor corrected cut saved as an MP4, so what I'm gonna do is just pull it in here, take off the audio, and just lay it over top. And what I'm going to do is just crop it. This is another good way to kind of check to make sure you're doing something right. And what I want to do, I'm going to just draw a cut, my own like custom thing here. Oh, give me like 10%. Okay, so when I draw this, I want to kind of go here. I just want to go like 100%. There we go. Okay, so what I've done by drawing that little crop mask thing is I have this line across the middle, and the top is color corrected, the bottom is non-color corrected. And that's kind of confusing, so I'm actually going to reverse that. Okay, so the top is now non-color corrected, the bottom is color. This is color corrected, this is non-color corrected. So we're going to just look through the whole scene like this and see kind of what we think. So you can see this is color corrected, this is not. So we just kind of see through the whole scene, through each of these angles, the difference that it's made. And the bottom should line up with each other a lot more than the tops do. And that's kind of what we're noticing here. Yeah, we see the big difference here in all of these. We really bump these a lot to make them fit with the other one. And typically I won't do color correction until I've kind of set my timeline edit at least relatively close to kind of final, just so that I know what angles are going to cut to what other angles. Like for instance, when I have a close of one cut to the close of the other, I want to kind of know where that's going to be so I can match it. Like this exchange right here is kind of fundamental for the whole thing. But yeah, that's pretty much you know, color correcting this scene. You know, you can see we changed it a lot. We made it a lot cooler on some angles, and then some angles got a little bit warmer. Yeah, some got a lot warmer. Like this, uncolor corrected. This is color corrected. So yeah, that's basically all I have for color correcting the scene. It's a short scene, pretty simple. Like I said 3 angles, 3 or 4 takes mixed together here. So makes life interesting. But yeah, that's all I have on color correction. Let me know if you guys have any weird questions or anything like that. And I'll do my best to address them. But yeah, until then, stay tuned. We'll do more of these. I promise. You haven't seen the end of these. We'll do more. I promise. But until then, yeah, have a fantastic day. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any